Okay, here we are on part 2 of this series of how to build a motorcycle seat. We are installing the gel, or about to install the gel. Before we do, I wanted to go over a couple of things so now you can kind of see it, where it is, what we're doing. Obviously, gel, like I said before, cheekbone pain, butt burning. So you really want it where your cheekbones are, and this is where it gets kind of weird. So if you look, your butt is usually wider than the gel. Sometimes you could take and put the gel at an angle to make sure you get your cheekbones on there. What I like to do is actually cut the gel out and spread it apart a little bit, because most people's cheekbones, if you imagine your butt sitting here, even though the seat looks big, your cheekbones are going to be right here and here, nothing here. And so if you put this here, a lot of times your cheekbones are actually on the edge of the gel and it's not really doing its job. You could get a bigger piece of gel and put the whole thing in gel, but honestly, you don't need gel in your butt crack and you don't need gel on your tailbone. Another thing I don't like is I really don't like gel on your legs. So I'll round this out a little bit so that your butt has it and then it kind of goes off. Another thing you're going to see me doing is, well, actually, we're just going to do it. Hold on. Okay, so for this seat here, I'm just going to round these edges off, right? I'm going to round this front off. I'll just leave this where it's at. I don't like gel on your balls. I don't feel you really need it. Orthopedic gel's firm. You don't need a lot of firmness there. So what I do is I just stop it right where we're at here. So let me trim this and I'll show you the sticky we talked about. So this here, sticky. So these things will wreak havoc on your scissors. I already got stuff on here, so that's why a lot of times you put chalk on there. I will also label this front, rear, right? Well, I should do rear, rear, front, front, because we're going to cut that out and you're not going to see it. So I just label it. You label everything. If you label everything, you don't have to think. And when you could think about what you're doing and not have to worry about stupid stuff, you move a lot faster working on cars and bikes. I'll tell you that much. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread. I'm going to try to. We got front, rear. Oh, Frank. Here's Frank, the tool guy. Hold on, let me pause this. All right, so I'm not sure where I left off. So I cut the gel, spread it apart a little bit. So now the gel can come out, cover more of your cheekbones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark around this. And this is why it's important to label the gel, so you make sure that after you cut it, you put it back in the exact same location. And this is some sticky stuff. Sticky, sticky, sticky. Front, back, left, right, left, right. So now what we have here is that. So we're going to go and grind it down. I'm going to use the 3-inch Rolox, which I'll show you. And of course, there will be a link in the description of where you could buy this. Or you could go to atomiccycleworksgarage.com, click on copycat link, and you'll see tools, equipment, all the stuff we use. I really actually do like the little 2-inch grinding disc for doing the gel. So we're going to take one of these sticky little bastards and bring them with us, because what I like to do is take one of these and as I'm grinding, use that for the depth of it, so you're not constantly putting the gel in and out. And once you get the depth right where you want it, you can put the big piece of gel in and that'll show us how level it is. I will sink this down a little bit lower than the foam, and I'm going to tell you why once we get to that stage. All right, so it's really nice out, so I'm just going to do this outside. It's actually almost too nice. Okay, so you can see here, here's the, if I didn't already just show you that, the 2-inch grinder. I like to cut it down here. There's other ways you could do this too. So, well, first off, I put this gel in, when you see I mark it, and I always cut it on the inside of the mark, because when you put the gel in, a lot of times it actually, the holes becomes too big because you're changing the shape and profile of the seat. So I got this sitting where I want it. I'm going to go down a little bit more because I kind of want to have about, I would say about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. I want about 1/4 inch lower. So we're going to do that. But you can see as you put it in, it starts to bubble up on the edges. So you can see my line here And you can see I ground like a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch in. So I do that because you want pressure, the gel touching the foam. If it's a gap, then you're gonna have gaps and it's gonna look like crap and you'll have air pockets and you'll feel it. So I just go around now, I'm fine tuning it. I'm gonna make sure that this sits in 1/4 of an inch lower than the original foam, and then I'll show you why. All right, so I have this set where I want it about 1/4 inch down all the way around. The reason I put it 1/4 inch down is because we're gonna skim this with another layer of foam. And because the customer didn't want a different height or profile of the seat, if we had put the gel in there at the level and then put the seat cover on there, you'd be sitting right on the gel. And I don't like that because the gel, even though it has a memory, it's gooey. And when you sit on it, it changes what your seat looks like, and then you have to wait for it to actually kind of spring back, and it has a tendency to want to put a lot of wrinkles in it. So I always skim it with a little bit of foam. Plus, this way you're not directly sitting right on the gel, you're actually still sitting on a foam, so you get some more of a little bit of a cushion, and then you also get the benefits of the non-vibration from the gel. So now we're going to go and put the foam on it. Now I just went through and sprayed contact adhesive on there. If you're doing it at home, you could brush it on if you wanted to. I just don't like brushing on because it kind of leaves it thick. And you're going to want to kind of tuck your gel in so it's pushing out at all corners. You want it to be, I like to have a nice pressure so that the foam's pushing the gel so everything's nice and tight. Nice and tight like a tiger. And now I put this down 1/4 inch thick, 1/4 inch under the top layer of the foam. And I'm going to take a Landau foam, 1/4 inch Landau foam, and I already glued it. You want to sand this stuff. You can take an aggressive piece of sandpaper and sand it. The Landau foam has like a skin on it. If you were to glue that and put it on, a lot of times it peels up and separates, and there's nothing worse than getting a whole seat done and then having your pocket pop out because the glue didn't stick because you didn't take the time to actually glue it. So also you'll notice we left the plastic on. Sometimes you get gel and the plastic on there could come off. I never like to do that because even though the gel's sticky, it's not sticky in the right stickiness where your foam bonds to it. So the stuff that has the plastic that's really stuck to it well, I like to leave that on there. And then now we're going to glue. So I already glued this foam. I'm going to glue this area here and we're going to stick it on. So now I'm just going to trim the excess off here because there's no sense of making more work for yourself sanding everything off. Trim all this flashing off. And right to the glue line. Okay, so now all this layer is going to do is just fill in that 1/4 inch gap so I have a barrier from the foam to the gel. If you were to grind the top layer of foam even with the gel and then put a piece of foam on top of it, you could do that. I do that sometimes, but when you shave it down, what ends up happening is anywhere there's a high spot or an edge, it's gonna be really thin. So then you really should have you want some sort of buildage, like millage between the foam, the gel, and your seat cover. So this here, I'm just using an old school cheese grater, which this also will have a link in the description where you can purchase these things. I like the half moon ones. The reason I like the half moon ones, the crown, is because you can kind of go with it. The flat ones, they always dig in, and I don't, this is personal preference. So now I'm just gonna go through and I'm just shaping it. And what I like about these, I mean, people used to use these for body filler back in the day when you did like a big hit. You would put your body filler on and then you would carve it with a cheese grater. And the reason you do that is one, it takes off the material, but two, when you have this thing flat, it cuts it and it levels it. So you're not gonna have a lot of low spots in it. And it's kind of the same thing with when I'm doing foam. When we're grinding that, we're just using this as a way to level it. So we're just going through, and you always want to feather edge everything, and you want to make sure that and what feather edging means is you want the grit of whatever you're sanding with to be the same texture going through. So you want to have it just melt right in it. So the foam and the new foam and the old foam will actually have the sanding marks going right through it and be consistent. And I'm just going to round this off here. Sometimes I like to cut this area out to relieve pressure up front. This customer did not want that. He likes the way everything else is in the seat. He just wanted gel, so we're doing that. Feather edge everything. And what's nice about this back is we cut it right where the seat cover goes through the hole. So we don't have to go too crazy there. Another thing I did, which I didn't mention when we were foaming this or grinding this, is the seat has a profile like this. I don't like to leave that in there when I put gel. I actually level it and let the gel sit down a little bit lower. Okay, I'm just gonna sand this out and then I'm gonna do another layer and I'll hit you up when we're at the next layer. Now that I shaved this, you can see some of the areas weren't level. So you can see the gel got really close here. There's a couple of air pockets because when the foam gets really close to the gel, even though it's sticky and even though you glue it, it's a tough item to have something stick really well to, so it's going to blister and bubble. And that's another reason why I like to make sure that you have enough foam over it that fits well, because if you only have a 1/16 of an inch or less, a 32nd inch of foam, and you put a cover on it and you try to move it around, it's going to peel it up. So now I'm just going to put one more layer on. This is kind of our safety layer. It's just going to give us that extra security where we're going to have at least an 1/8 inch of foam above the gel, and this foam now is bonded to the foam around it, locks everything in, and if you think about it, even if it delaminated from the gel underneath it, it's still free floating across it and it will have some sort of structure and stability and look decent. All right, so now I got this all sanded down. You can see we have a nice thick barrier over the gel. You could move it around, it doesn't look all funky, and it'll add a little bit of comfort to it. When you sand the Landau foam, you could go like 36 grit, 80 grit, 120, and just really keep going down and fine tune it. So like on a high-end seat, we might use a neoprene foam or a Landau foam to get the shape really good. And then we actually go through the whole process and sand it almost as if you would with the body work, where you sand it really fine, smooth, and get it really good. Seats like this, you're not going to do that. The everyday seats, there's no reason to. So we just sand it down like you just saw we did, or I did. And I'm going to grab piece of 1/4 inch soap and we're going to put it on it. And the reason that we're going to do this is you have to think about the next step. You have to think about the next step. The next step is going to be making the cover. So we got to say, if this cover has soap foam underneath it or something laminated to it, you could actually bypass adding foam to the seat at this point and just go right over this. This one, because we're patterning right off the factory pattern and we're doing it exactly the same way, that didn't have soap foam, so we're not going to use soap foam. So what I'm going to do is add soap foam to the seat. So this way we'll have a nice foam seat ready to go. We put our cover on it and we're dynamite. So let's put the soap foam on it and then when you're putting your soap foam on, all you're doing is just putting this on just to kind of make sure that there's no bumps, dings, whatever. You know, you want it nice and smooth and consistent. Also, I like to make sure it goes around the edges, because sometimes the foam will have a parting line seam. So there's like a hard thing that goes across there. By putting the soap foam across it, it hides that. Other times, you might be going over the seat pan itself, and by having a little bit of cushion on there, when you put your cover on it, it looks a little bit more professional. You don't see any sharp edges or anything. So that is it for the foam, adding gel and just putting this foam on it. That is the process that I do for a lot of them. Everyone's different. And like I said, the reason we're doing these videos is because we're going to show you full step-by-step through entire seats. So you can see that even though they're similar, they're different, and there's different reasons you do different things. The third part, this was the second part of this little series on building a seat. The third part, we're going to actually pattern the seat, and it's going to be different than the patterning that you're used to us seeing, because normally on a motorcycle seat, I pattern everything from scratch. This one, we're going to use the factory seat cover as the pattern, which is going to be a little bit different, so you're going to get to see that. So please remember, if you like these videos, like, share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell. I appreciate it when you do that because it helps us out. Thank you.